Hello and welcome to the Nash CHURCHLAKE. It is November, early November 2021. It's my first time to the lake and it's Thursday. We got here on Monday and I'm with a group of 5 other guys and we made an exclusive booking months and months ago. And I guess we wanted to just make a short video. There are plenty of videos on YouTube showing the church and some of the beautiful fish. But we wanted to add another video that talked a little bit more about the tactics, the approach to it, and you know, our experience, particularly at this time of the year. So I hope you find it useful. So in terms of facilities, I think there are 8 swims. There are 6 of us on this week, so we're well spread. We have the whole lake covered, which I think is important, so it keeps the fish moving and gives everyone an equal chance, I hope. There is a lodge. Very comfortable. It's got a fully fitted kitchen, oven, microwave, fridge, everything you need. It's got a shower. There's some toilets on site as well. So really comfortable, really nice. It's a good place to go and make that morning brew and just gather your thoughts before you watch the water. But really comfortable, lovely place to be in the Essex countryside. Even at this time of the year, it's gotten a bit cooler. It's just been a pleasure to be here.
First fish for the group and the first bite was early Tuesday morning, so after our first night here. And it was about 8:30, and Dean and Mike, who kind of look after us and run the place here at Nash CHURCHLAKE, they'd come up for a cup of tea and just to see how our first night had been and had anyone had anything shown. And while they were with us in the swim, just having a brew, my rod, the indicator, it was literally like a 2-drop drop back, and then it went up and it went down again and it went up, and we had no wind on the lake. The rod tip, the line weren't really moving, it was really subtle, and we're just watching the bobbin and it went down again. So just a really bizarre take, but I come over, squat down by the rod and had a look, and slowly the line was very to the left, started to pendulum. No line was coming off the reel, no further indication on the bobbin, just literally pendulum really slowly off over to the left. And I positioned that in about 8 foot of water just at the front of the bar that runs between the 2 islands. And so on that, picked up, lifted into it, and the fish was on. And it wasn't an amazing hard fight. I think the fish was relatively lethargic, very early on. But as I was bringing it in, some weed got caught up on the line, and so I wasn't in direct contact with the fish. And the swim I'm in, it's literally sort of like 2 foot to about half a rod length out, and then it just drops off straight down to sort of like 8-9 foot. And so we didn't get a glimpse of the fish until it was literally a rod length out. And the water here, it's gin clear. And we had the sun beating down, we had great clarity, and as it kind of come up from the depths at the bottom of that shelf at 8 foot, and it just sat below the surface. I did hear one of the chaps in front of me say, I think that's the fully scaled. And again, didn't really register with me that it was a known fish in one of the A team. But we played it, I played it, attempts at netting it. First time didn't go quite right, it kind of bounced off the cord at the front of the net. But second time round in the net, and then Mike said, yeah, it's the big fully scaled. So to land one of the known fish first off the bat, and I think they said there's about 110 carp in here. Just feeling incredibly fortunate and lucky to have done that. But yeah, it was certainly very nervous and dry mouth right up until the point it got in the net.
So I'm in the pump swim on the Church Lake, and in terms of where I'm fishing, well, firstly I listen to the bailiff, Dean and Mike. They put us on to some suggested areas. Of course this year you're allowed bait boats, so that's been useful to put the echo sounder out and just look for particular features. So as an example, in my swim there is a nice deep area about 8 foot before it comes up quite quickly to a shallow area in front of an island with a lot of weed. So that echo sounder and that ability to see what is down there has been really useful to give me the confidence to know that I'm fishing on a good area. It's quite a clear lake, and so there's quite a lot of weed both on the bottom and also coming up through the water column. So listen to the bailiff, bit of echo sounding, and of course looking for fish. So on the rig front, well, we're here Monday to Friday and been prepared to leave baited rigs in the water for up to 48 hours before making any changes. So I started off with some low-lying pop-ups or wafters just hovering above the hook. They haven't been terribly successful for me personally so far, but I think that's probably to do with the time of year. You know, we're in November now, and I'd imagine they've seen a lot of low-lying pop-ups through the season. So I've been moving through the different options, and I was lucky enough to catch fish. We had changed that rig to just a very small artificial corn stack, just hovering above the hook. That was baited with some sweet corn around it, but we'd soaked the artificial corn in some Energizer gel from Karper. I think it was the sweetener variety, but I'd been soaking for a long time, so it just had something a bit different about it. But that was the successful rig for us. So on baits, probably brought far too much, but I worked on the basis that it would be better to have plenty in the armoury in case we needed it. I'm glad we did. So we've brought boilies, I've brought crumb boilies, I've brought chopped, brought some pellet, I've got some particle, I've got some chopped nuts, I've got some tiger nuts, I've got some bloodworm, casters, maggots, sweet corn. We brought a lot and have used very little. I mean, again, it's November now, so I haven't used a single round ball boilie during our session. Everything has been finely crumbed and just really fishing a mouthful. Now we've soaked some of those baits in, again, the Karper Energizer liquids. Just leave that soaking for as long as you want. And I feel that is a good attractor for the little pockets of bait that we've been putting down. I have been delivering them out with a bait boat and just dropping to these spots that we've identified with the echo sounder, but using a mixture of the things that I mentioned, like the casters, the bloodworm, the hemp, but a mouthful for a fish. Because this time of year, with the weed still in the lake, they're coming out of the weed probably to feed at certain times of the day. You're not really going to be feeding aggressively. You just want that mouthful, I think, on the bottom for them to hoover up and make it as attractive as possible. So that's why I use the Karper Energizer liquids. Spot on for this type of fishing.
So the common's an interesting one because I'd had a rod out on a spot just in front of the bar for 36 hours maybe, and the common I had the following day, so it was Wednesday afternoon, about 2 o'clock. But all day that morning, one of my friends who actually arranged and booked this trip for us, Simon, he'd said to me, you know, I'd messing around making teas, coffees, back and forth in the lodge. I wasn't really watching the water. But the island to my right, you know, he called me out about 11 and said, mate, you know, there's a fish that's kind of topped over that spot 3-4 times now. And I thought, you know, it's just one of them things. It's a pressured water. Do you chase fish? You know, do you go after them or do you sit tight on your spots? But I saw it with my own eyes about half an hour later, so 4th or 5th show now, over that spot. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to move the rod. And so again, I took the bait boat out, had a trundle, and what was really interesting when you know, the question you asked before about finding spots, exactly where the fish was topping, was weed from lake bed right up to about a foot below the surface. So the depth out there was sort of like 8 foot, but 7 foot of weed. And again, the rig I was fishing, I didn't really want to be presenting that right on top of it. So I trundled the boat around, and maybe a rod to rod length to the right of that spot where the fish was showing, a clear channel broke out. And so I dropped the rod on that spot, having found that, and within about 45 minutes, rattled off. But you know, comparative to the first take, this was like a proper take. You know, rod tip whack right round, bobbing up, alarm going off, and lent into that, and that one really did put up a good scrap. You know, afternoon, you know, whether it was just the heat on the lake or whatever it might have been, but it really put up a good scrap. Again, close in, maybe a 20-minute fight, and I don't think we saw it for the first 15, just because of that deep shelf down on the bottom. But again, you know, a little bit squeaky bum time, because when it did kind of come up into the upper layers, it was clear it was a big, beautiful common. Again, we're a little bit unlucky with the netting. First time didn't go quite right, off the cord again. Yeah, second attempt round in the net. And again, super fortunate. It was another one of the kind of known A-team fish, a common, they call it not the baby face, and it went 42 pound right on the nose. So really, really fortunate to have had two of the kind of special fish. And again, that was on the tiger nut, double tiger nut blowback rig with the sweet corn dispersion pop-up slices just in between to balance it. And again, with the matching glug and gel particle over the top of that, and 45 minutes rattled off. Been fortunate so far to have landed two really nice fish, a beautiful mirror and a beautiful common. I'm just going to talk you through kind of the approach I've taken to finding spots, bait and rigs that's led to the capture of those two stunning fish. I have a lot of confidence in a certain particle, and in particular tiger nuts as hook baits this time of year. And where we're back into the season, the fish have seen a lot of boilies. I mean, to be fair, they've probably seen it all across the bait range, but I'd imagine a lot of boilies has gone in. So again, starting out, time of year, not sure what bait we were fishing over from the group that was on the week before us. The idea was to try and nick a bite at a time. And so I decided to go with double tiger nuts. It's something I use a lot this time of year, and I've got a lot of confidence in it. And to fish that over some hemp, maize and some other mixed particle, just a smattering of bait, looking for a bite at a time. And if the fish were going to, feed and clearly show they were having it, then maybe introduce a little bit more, maybe bring in some chopped boilie crumb. But the intent was to kind of start with a particle approach, predominantly hemp, maize, as I said, some other mixed grains, and just have 2 tigers as hook bait. No loose feed with those, but just 2 tigers as hook bait. I guess with tigers as the chosen hook bait, a rig that I've been using for quite some time now, fishing here and abroad where tigers are permitted, is just a very basic, simple blowback rig with a ring. You're not allowed to use long shank hooks here, so just put a bit of shrink tubing on to create a bit of a kicker and a bit more length to the hook. But just a very basic, standard ring blowback rig. And the way I fish it, just to create a little bit of neutral buoyancy, is to have 2 tigers. And I started out with the rig using yellow rig foam, and I just cut 2 coins or slices and effectively have one on top and one in between the tigers. And what that was doing is it was just balancing so that they'd kind of hit the deck and almost waft, not be quite popped up, but just neutral buoyancy. And so that's, as I said, that's a rig and approach I've used at least for the last 4 or 5 years. And then over the last 12 months, I've been trialling some of the Karper bait out, and they do a sweet corns dispersion pop-up, which is, it's like a dry-coated pop-up hook bait, but it leaks off, a really good scent of attraction, but not just attraction, colour. It's almost like when you think about the goos and the cloud they create, it's water activated. So I do these 12mm pop-ups, and it lends itself quite nicely. So if you kind of cut one in half, you can get a nice kind of slice or coin out of each boilie. And so I started to introduce those into the rig, replacing the yellow rig foam. And so what that does is it lets you still create the same, neutral buoyancy that I was fishing with before. But then you've got that added attraction and colour leakage that's coming out from the dispersion pop-up. But as I said, I wasn't fishing them as pop-ups, just literally a slice out of them, but it just goes to show the versatility of the product. And that's now replaced the rig foam that I was using previously. I do like to generally glug in sort of like just a liquid overnight. Again, they've obviously got their own attractions and sugars, but just to give it that extra bit of a boost. And so typically what I do ahead of a session, I like a good few scoops of hemp and maize, and I'll pre-glug that. And currently I'm using, again, the Karper Energizer glug liquid. It's very sweet smelling, and they do one that matches the sweet corns range. And so I would glug the particle, which is what I did ahead of this trip, and then just prior to actually putting it out in the bait boat, give it an extra dousing on the top with, they do a product, it's very similar to a goo, and it's like a gel really, and again it's in the matching sweet corns range, so it's like a nice vivid yellow, but just a bit more dense, sits on the bottom. And then when that goes down with the particle, you've obviously got the Energizer releasing all those good sugars and attractors on top of what the particle is naturally giving off. But then the gel on top is just that extra burst of colour and plume that it creates as it goes down through the water column. And again, this time of year, just trying every little edge you can to get a little bit more attraction in the bite, a little bit more attraction in the swim, just to nick a bite. And when we got here on the Monday, the idea was to not put too much out. I wanted to spend a little bit more time on the Tuesday morning finding some proper spots that I could stick with over the course of the week. But when I did put the 3 rods out Monday, 2 of them I just went with a smattering of bait, literally a handful. But on the 3rd one, I did put a little bit more out. Not a huge amount, maybe just a little over a kilo, again, of the kind of glugged particle with the tigers. And it is that rod that did the bite Tuesday morning. And so on that basis, I then mended the others, and I've kind of upped the bait a little bit, so around about a kilo per rod. And it was successful. I had a second fish Wednesday, early afternoon, again off a spot where I put a bit more bait in, not loads, about a kilo, but just a glug particle, so it's just a lot of attraction, but not necessarily a lot of food to kind of fill them up. And I found that that's worked well, that's worked well so far.
If you're watching this, chances are you might be thinking about coming to the church, or perhaps you've booked a session. And certainly when we were doing our preparation, we were looking online to look for some insights, some tips, some ideas, and just a general feeling. for the lake so we could prepare. And there's plenty of content, a lot of lovely fish being caught, but we didn't really find a lot of depth. Certainly not an easy water, and I think that's well known. You know, it is a challenging water, and given the fact that we're here in late autumn, that probably makes it a little bit more challenging as well, in that you're not going to catch lots of fish. I'm here with 5 other guys, so there's 6 of us, so we decided to occupy the lake as much as possible so that we didn't give areas where the fish could go and hide, and I think that's an important consideration in terms of the numbers of you. You know, it's a 4.5 acre lake, I think, with 8 swims. So for example, if there were 2 of you thinking of coming as an exclusive, that's going to make it challenging around, you know, the areas that the fish might choose to go and sit in when your rods are out. So we're 6, and we probably think that's helped us. Definitely listen to the bailiff. Dean's a great guy, ably assisted by Mike. It was interesting to pay attention to some of the things they said when we arrived. For example, they were telling us that some of the fish that were being caught were coming out with very black mouths, suggesting that the fish were feeding in the silt. So maybe looking for the pockets of silt, the food larders, would be a good approach. But certainly their advice on productive areas, where fish have been caught, how much bait has been going in, how much bait to apply, all those things I think leads to a recommendation that I would make, which is don't come with any preconceived idea. You know, come with an open mind, come with an armoury of bait, come being prepared to sit behind a single rod in a swim and have a rod somewhere else and maybe another rod poked out. Don't think about coming with 3 pretty rods all neatly placed in the swim, because that might not be the most effective way to tackle the lake. There are lots of little nooks and crannies where you can poke a rod, fish a margin, leave it really quietly. I mean, I've got one in that's been in there 36 hours. It's about 15-20 yards away from my main swim. And that's what Dean recommended to me. It's a good productive area. We've come with bait boats, with echo sounders, and that's been crucial, I think, to help understand the topography of the lake. Understanding the various depths. There are areas of this lake that go from 8, 9, 10 foot straight up to very shallow areas or a wall of weed. Understanding those features and where they are, I think, is crucial. It's one thing to see a showing fish and to cast a chod on it. If you've just put that chod into 6 foot of solid weed, you may not be fishing effectively. So that's helped us, I think, this week. Just understand, not all of us have caught yet. 2 of us have been lucky. One guy's had 2, and I was fortunate enough to get a fish that we'll show you shortly. Coming with a group and share the same ethos around how to tackle this lake. So none of us have been spodding or feature finding. We've all been very quiet, very disciplined in minimal feeding, putting the rods in, leaving them in, and just trying to work the lake that way, and I think it's been successful for us. I mean, 3 fish, I think we're really content. Of course, we all want to catch, and we want everyone in the group to catch, but it's a team effort, and I think that's a really good way to approach this lake, is as a team, try and get the best from it.
With £31 10-ounce mirror, gorgeous mirror, look at the colour on it. Fell to a sweet corn stack, artificial sweet corn, soaked in the Energizer gels. Again with some free bait over the top, some particle again soaked in the Energizer gels. doing the business for me. But yeah, over the moon with that. Cracking fish, looks like an original. Super fish. Happy days.
So it's Friday lunchtime now, coming to the close of our session. We'll be off of the lake by 3 o'clock, but the good news is guys have a fantastic quad and barrow system here, so they'll pick all the gear up for us and ferry it back down to the car park. Plus there's no nets or slings to take home because again it's all supplied on site, so that's one less thing to worry about. But we've had a great time. Free fish as it stands. We're still hopeful. We've still got 2 or 3 hours left, but even if we leave with the free fish between the 6 of us, we knew it was going to be a challenging water. And I think everyone would agree that it's just been a privilege to see the fish that we have caught on the bank and to fish at this lake. It's clean, it's safe, it's in the middle of the countryside, and we've just all had a thoroughly great time, and can't speak highly enough about Dean and Mike, the bailiffs, who look after us and make sure that everything's okay every day and give us some tips and ideas. We've had a great time, and I'm sure we'll be back, and we hope this video has been useful to try and give an insight to our experience at the Church Lake. So if you found this video useful, as with all good videos, we'd ask you to like it and to share it and follow the Karper page. And so yeah, give us a like, give us a share, it'd be much appreciated. Thanks. Thanks for watching.